One of the many amazing organisations the Charitable Foundation has supported is Teens Unite Facing Cancer, based in Hertfordshire. Teens Unite brings youth together who have been diagnosed with cancer during a time that can cause overwhelming feelings of fear, isolation, and loneliness. Through workshops, activity days, and residential stays, Teens Unite provides that ongoing social, emotional, and physical support needed by these young people. They support young people from diagnosis through treatment, recovery, and into remission. They understand that cancer doesn't stop when the treatment stops. The effects of a cancer diagnosis can be long-lasting and often life-changing. They enable young people whose lives have been impacted by a cancer diagnosis to socialize with others their age in a similar situation. They encourage each other, share their hopes, fears, and experiences, and live their lives to the fullest possible. The long-standing partnership between the Foundation and Teens Unite has enabled us to impact over 150 teens through the Product and Monetary Grant Programme. We are so grateful to our sponsors, Regional Vice President Holly Mitchell and District Manager Leslie Jones, who together have championed the Foundation and the Teens Unite. A very special thank you to you, Leslie, for your commitment as well to these teenagers through your volunteer work. The Foundation is so appreciative to these women who strive to make positive changes in the lives of these courageous teenagers. So, speaking of courageous people, I am honoured to introduce to you someone who is part of Teens Unite to share her story with you. Give her a warm Arbonne welcome and introduce Lucy.
Wow, there is a lot of you here today. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my story. So I was 20 years old, and I was in my second year of my nursing degree in Birmingham. I'd moved from Milton Keynes, and I felt like my world had been torn apart. Leading up to my diagnosis of Hodgkin's lymphoma, all I had was a little bit of shortness of breath, which I thought might have just been some asthma. They ran some blood tests and showed I had something called microcytic anemia, which meant that I was producing red blood cells, but they weren't maturing and allowing the oxygen to go to the bits of my body. I had really high white cell counts, which they just couldn't explain. I knew my GP was getting increasingly concerned. He was calling me at home. He was calling me to come in for blood tests for things he didn't know if I had. Several weeks later, in my clavicle, I found a non-painful lump, no bigger than a size of a pea. It didn't hurt, didn't bother me, but I couldn't be sure that it was nothing. And because of how scared my GP had acted, I called an emergency appointment and went to go see him. That day, he told me, "I think you have cancer." He sent me for an X-ray, followed by an emergency CT scan. I had 42 tumours between my neck and my groin, and I needed to see a specialist immediately. I had to start chemotherapy, and I needed over 6 months of chemo, 12 sessions. I stayed in Birmingham to have my treatment, even though I was so far away from my parents. and I received fantastic support from other charities. I had my own special nurse, and I had my own special ward, and it was amazing. However, I got sepsis, a life-threatening illness, on the day of my 21st birthday. I'd no longer had to wait for my chemo. They had been putting it off. But I had to start immediately. I went on to have sepsis 3 more times. However, I believed I primarily remained positive. You can see from my photos, I always went in with a smile. However, I was very isolated. Because of sepsis, I was vulnerable. I had to stay by myself for the primary of that 6 months. I couldn't make cancer friends like my other friends, and my friends that I'd made at university just didn't understand. I was the girl with cancer, and they didn't know what to say to me. At the end of my remission, they scanned me, and it found that I still had unusual activity, and I would need more surgery. I had surgery 2 days before Christmas. Again, it was pretty difficult. I couldn't go home for Christmas. My parents weren't allowed in the hospital, so I spent Christmas by myself. It was confirmed that I had a second type of cancer. And I couldn't believe that I had just gone through 6 months of chemo to find out that I had another type. But fortunately, they thought they'd got it all, but it still felt like a kick in the teeth. I felt, why now? Why me? And I didn't feel mentally strong enough as I did the first time round. I was diagnosed with depression and PTSD after my treatment. And in less than a year, my body had undergone so many changes. People who were my friends had disappeared, and my support that I had grown accustomed to while on that ward had also slipped away. I eventually went back to work, and I went back to university, but fitting in was difficult. People didn't know how to talk to me. I was that girl with cancer, and I made people feel very uncomfortable. People often have a brush with cancer, someone in their family, their mum, their dad, their aunt, and I reminded them too much of it. I found out in August 2017 that I needed more surgery because there had been new tumours, and the other half of my thyroid they had to take out. That same week, Teens Unite come up on my Facebook page as someone I might like to follow, because a couple of my friends, someone who I'd met previously, had liked them. I checked out their page, and they had an activity stay coming up, and I could see from my friend's photo what an amazing time this looked like. I found their website, and they did have another stay coming up. The only problem was it was 1 week after my surgery. And I felt like it was going to be impossible. Can't go on an activity stay if you've just had surgery, can you? I mean, I had a whole organ removed. But I registered on the website anyway. They seemed to have a lot of things going on, and I thought maybe something else will come up. But then I got a call from an activity coordinator, and they explained that it just wouldn't be a problem. It didn't matter that I had surgery. It didn't matter that I was going to be unwell, even if I could just be there, just spending time with other people. And I can honestly say that that activity stay was the best experience that I've had post-cancer. I got to spend time with other people who just understood what it was like. The activity coordinators weren't medical in the slightest, and it was so refreshing in comparison to the other support that I'd got. They weren't there to talk about my treatment, and they weren't there to remind me to do what I was supposed to do. They were simply there just to have some fun. You can see from all of the photos how much we got up to. I made some amazing friendships, and we have all been there for each other since. Due to their encouragement, it allowed me to explore outside my comfort zone and build me up to make a more confident person. Teens Unite are one of the few charities that have no time limit in how long they can support you for. They are there for as long as you need them, and I know that I always have somewhere to turn to, somewhere to talk to, and somewhere to go when I am finding it hard. So thank you, Arbonne Charity, for making this possible.
Amazing is this young woman. Thank you, Lucy, for joining us here at AAC and sharing your inspirational story.